Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, there love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other. It all depends on how we look at things and not how they are in themselves. Children are educated by what the grown-up is and not by his talk. Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol or morphine or idealism. The pendulum of the mind alternates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. We are born at a given moment, in a given place, and, like vintage years of wine, we have the qualities of the year and of the season of which we are born. Astrology does not lay claim to anything more. Knowledge rests not upon truth alone, but upon error also. A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. A particularly beautiful woman is a source of terror. As a rule, a beautiful woman is a terrible disappointment. Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. It is far better to take things as they come along with patience and equanimity. One looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touched our human feelings. The curriculum is so much necessary raw material, but warmth is the vital element for the growing plant and for the soul of the child. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. The healthy man does not torture others. Generally, it is the tortured who turn into torturers. Through pride, we are ever deceiving ourselves. But deep down, below the surface of the average conscious, a still, small voice says to us, something is out of tune. The most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. It is just these intense conflicts and their conflagration which are needed to produce valuable and lasting results. There is no such thing as a pure introvert or extrovert. Such a person would be in the lunatic asylum. If there is anything that we wish to change in the child, we should first examine it and see whether it is not something that could better be changed in ourselves. The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved but only outgrown. Man needs difficulties. They are necessary for health. Often the hands will solve a mystery that the intellect has struggled with in vain. The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it. For a young person, it is almost a sin, or at least a danger, to be too preoccupied with himself. But for the aging person, it is a duty and a necessity to devote serious attention to himself. We should not pretend to understand the world only by the intellect. The judgment of the intellect is only part of the truth. If one does not understand a person, one tends to regard him as a fool. Who has fully realized that history is not contained in thick books, but lives in our very blood? Man's task is to become conscious of the contents that press upward from the unconscious. The debt we owe to the play of imagination is incalculable. Show me a sane man, and I will cure him for you. The word belief is a difficult thing for me. I don't believe. I must have a reason for a certain hypothesis. Either I know a thing, and then I know it. I don't need to believe it. Without this playing with fantasy, no creative work has ever yet come to birth. The debt we owe to the play of the imagination is incalculable. Shrinking away from death is something unhealthy and abnormal which robs the second half of life of its purpose. Follow that will and that way which experience confirms to be your own. Dreams are the guiding words of the soul. Why should I, henceforth, not love my dreams and not make their riddling images into objects of my daily consideration? Great talents are the most lovely and often the most dangerous fruits on the tree of humanity. They hang upon the most slender twigs that are easily snapped off. In my case, Pilgrim's Progress consisted in my having to climb down 1,000 ladders until I could reach out my hand to the little clod of earth that I am. Resistance to the organized mass can be effected only by the man who is all well organized in his individuality as the mass itself. Happy who, from the experience of life, have learned to bear its ills without being overcome by them. Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. It is a fact that cannot be denied. The wickedness of others becomes our own wickedness because it kindles something evil in our own hearts. Nobody, as long as he moves about among the chaotic currents of life, is without trouble. The man who promises everything is sure to fulfill nothing. and everyone who promises too much is in danger of using evil means in order to carry out his promises and is already on the road to perdition. Man is not a machine that can be remodeled for quite other purposes as occasion demands, in the hope that it will go on functioning as regularly as before, but in quite a different way. He carries his whole history with him. In his very structure is written the history of mankind. Masses are always breeding grounds for psychic epidemics. All the works of man have their origin in creative fantasy. What right have we then to depreciate imagination? Understanding does not cure evil, but it is a definite help, inasmuch as one can cope with a comprehensible darkness. Mistakes are, after all, the foundations of truth, and if a man does not know what a thing is, it is at least an increase in knowledge if he knows what it is not. A psychoneurosis must be understood, ultimately, as the suffering of a soul which has not discovered its meaning. A scream is always just that, a noise and not music. Our heart glows and secret unrest gnaws at the root of our being. Dealing with the unconscious has become a question of life for us. Grounded in the natural philosophy of the Middle Ages, alchemy formed a bridge, on the one hand into the past, to Gnosticism, and on the other into the future, to the modern psychology of the unconscious. Everyone knows nowadays that people have complexes. What is not so well known, though far more important theoretically, is that complexes can have us. We are in a far better position to observe instincts in animals or in primitives than in ourselves. This is due to the fact that we have grown accustomed to scrutinizing our own actions and to seeking rational explanations for them. I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol, morphine, or idealism. Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent. I shall not commit the fashionable stupidity of regarding everything I cannot explain as a fraud.